Enduring intense cancer pain, I scoured the shops to buy him the ring he liked. Yet, at that very moment, he was holding the ring I'd given him and getting engaged to Chloe. Watching the sweet, happy couple on stage, my heart felt nothing. She and I are just a charade, don't take it seriously. I'm just humoring my family, we're not even officially married. Don't worry, you've always been the one in my heart, nothing has changed. That's what he told me after the ceremony. But the genuine, happy smiles on their faces during the ceremony still pierced my heart constantly. Still, I knew this ring was the last debt I owed him. From now on, we're even. Late that night, Marcus stumbled back, smelling of alcohol, and tossed a package of exquisite pastries onto the table. I brought these for you. Why did you leave before the ceremony was over? His tone was dismissive, completely unaware of my fists clenched tight from the pain. He was exhausted. Without even taking off his jacket, he plopped down next to me. The ring I'd given him gleamed on his finger, stinging my eyes. Marcus never wore elaborate jewelry, he found it troublesome and restrictive. For this, I spent 3 whole months searching for this delicate ring, hoping he would wear it someday to propose to me. But I never imagined this ring would appear at his wedding reception with another woman. Catching my gaze, Marcus, feeling guilty, put his arm around my shoulder and whispered coaxingly, "Grace, I'm hungry. Can you make me something to eat?" I shook my head. He thought I was playing games and was about to get angry, but then he heard me whisper, "I didn't prepare anything for tonight." He froze, his gaze sweeping over the empty coffee table. Only then did he believe me. He rubbed his temples, sighed deeply, and said with impatience, "Grace, I told you, this is just a family charade. Our statuses are too different, my family would never approve of us. She and I are just going through the motions, it was just a banquet, nothing more." Yet, just half a year ago, he promised to wait until I became successful, until the day I could stand by his side. Now, only 6 months later, he had broken his vow and expected me to pretend nothing had happened. Seeing my silence, he leaned in, intending to kiss my forehead. I instinctively turned away, pretending not to see the hickey on the side of his neck. I still remember, when I returned, dragging my ailing body after scouring several shops for his ring, I saw him kissing her on the banquet stage. Marcus didn't resist, and the guests' laughter surged like a tide. That laughter wasn't a blessing, but blatant mockery, stabbing at my heart. In that instant, I felt as if all my coverings had been stripped away, leaving me exposed in a bustling marketplace ravaged by a cold wind, left for everyone to gawk at. Humiliation, like a vine, coiled upward along my spine, constricting me tightly. Marcus finally lost his temper, grabbed the carved wooden bookmark I'd given him from the table, and slammed it to the floor. The bookmark broke in two, a keepsake we had carved together 2 years ago. I looked down, brushing dust from my clothes, my voice calm but chilling. "Marcus, I cannot accept the man I deeply love attending a wedding reception with someone else, and then expecting me to act as if nothing happened. If it were you, could you be at peace with it?" Hearing this, Marcus's face flashed with surprise, then twisted into a sneer. "What, you feel wronged? Don't forget, I was the one who helped your family in the first place. In other words, you're just a shadow I bought." What he said wasn't false. 5 years ago, my mother's shop was on the brink of collapse, and creditors came knocking, among them representatives from Vance. When he saw me, a hint of amusement flickered in his eyes. He lifted my chin and said slowly, "Your daughter is quite attractive. How about she comes to work for my corporation to pay off the debt?" People in our circle laughed, saying I had incredible luck to be noticed by Vance's young master and even join a top corporation. But only I knew he wasn't interested in me, but in my face, which bore some resemblance to his past relationship. As soon as someone who looked even more like her appeared, I became a dispensable substitute. Just as I was about to suggest we break up, he impatiently turned and entered the home office, the lock clicking shut. "You'll sleep in the living room tonight. Think things over." I sighed deeply and collapsed onto the sofa, exhausted, a wave of helplessness washing over me. The cancer pain always flared up in the dead of night, my abdomen cramping as if being cut by a knife. I curled up, aching too much to sleep. The doctor had warned that if I delayed any longer, neither dialysis nor chemotherapy might save my life. A kidney transplant was the only way. For years, every penny I earned went to pay off my mother's debt. My remaining savings were also spent on that ring. I owed him nothing more. It was almost dawn when I finally managed to fight off the pain and drifted into a sleepy haze. But less than 15 minutes after closing my eyes, Marcus burst out of the home office and yanked me to my feet. Before I could fully register what was happening, I saw him pulling me with one hand while sending a voice message on his phone with the other. "Chloe, don't worry, I'm on my way." The anxiety in his eyes was an expression he had never shown when I was hospitalized for kidney pain. The pain made my steps falter, unable to keep up with him. He shot me an impatient glare and growled, "Walk faster." I was in so much pain I could barely breathe, holding tightly onto the handrail to avoid falling. I wanted to tell him the truth, but seeing that his eyes were completely fixed on that personal secretary, I swallowed all my words. Marcus drove me to a lavishly decorated mansion, adorned with lanterns and streamers at the entrance to their matrimonial home. Just as I stepped inside, a vase shattered at my feet. Mr. Arthur, Marcus's father, was furious, pointing at me and cursing, "Grace, how dare you disrupt my son's wedding reception night? If I hadn't come to bring them a special health tonic, I wouldn't have known you dared to take him away on their wedding night." I instinctively looked at Marcus, hoping he would tell the truth. But he had already rushed to Chloe, his secretary, asking anxiously if she was startled. All the anger was unleashed on me alone. Just as Mr. Arthur raised his hand to slap me, I firmly gripped his wrist. "I didn't take your son, he came back on his own." The words had barely left my lips when Marcus turned to glare at me, shouting sharply, "Grace, what nonsense are you talking about?" As if to protect Chloe's reputation, he didn't hesitate to push me into the fire. "If you hadn't said you had a project to discuss, would I have left her to go find you? Get out of my sight, now." He was the one who brought me here, and he was the one driving me away. It was as if my presence served no other purpose than to highlight their deep affection for each other and his disgust for me. I had no reason to stay, and no desire to. I lowered my hand and looked directly at Marcus, saying calmly but firmly, "All right, I'm tired. This is where we part ways." Marcus froze for a moment, thinking I was playing games. He scoffed and led Chloe back to the main hall. Mr. Arthur hadn't come just to bring the special health tonic. He shook the gift box in his hand and scoffed, "If you dare ruin my son's plans again, I'll make sure you pay for it. My son, and you were just a charade these past few years. It's laughable that you actually thought you mattered." His voice was loud, his mockery echoing through the entire mansion. Marcus heard it too, but he remained impassive, letting his father humiliate me. In that moment, my heart turned completely cold. Leaving the mansion, I took a car directly to Vance and submitted my resignation. However, the HR department refused to process it, insisting I first get Mr. Marcus's approval. Reluctantly, I had to call him directly. But it was Chloe who answered, her voice laced with the languor of recent intimacy. "Are you looking for Mr. Marcus? He just finished working and is resting. I'm sorry, but when he wakes up, I'll have him call you back." Her tone was polite, yet it held a hint of triumph and provocation. Sure enough, after hearing this, the HR staff's gaze at me held more mockery and pity. The phone call ended, and my resignation was processed quickly, as if that call had merely been for their amusement. As I left the corporation, I heard whispers behind me. I pretended not to hear, numbly returned to my apartment, and began packing my luggage. Marcus pushed the door open, saw the scene, paused, then stepped forward and kicked over my suitcase. "Is it really necessary? You know what my dad's temper is like. Couldn't you just pretend to be deaf and dumb? Why do you insist on fighting with me? Are you done yet?" I didn't stop, silently picking up the suitcase. "My resignation has been submitted. Remember to approve it." Faced with his words being ignored, Marcus finally lost control of his emotions. He snatched my luggage and threw my clothes onto the floor. "Have you paid off the debt? And you think you can just leave? I'm telling you, as long as you haven't paid off your mom's debt, you're staying with me." I finally looked up at him. Seeing my calm gaze, Marcus smugly crossed his arms, believing he had found my weakness. But I simply took out 5 payment receipts from the drawer, clearly stating paid in full. Marcus stared at the receipts in shock, unable to believe that I, whom he had exploited into a meager salary, had paid off the debt so quickly. Over the years, he had offered to waive the debt, but I never agreed, stubbornly using my meager salary to repay it. To save for medical expenses, I lived frugally, eating only one meal a day. After work, I worked various part-time jobs, collapsing from exhaustion countless times. Marcus always found me shabby, throwing money at me to keep me from embarrassing him. But I always returned it untouched, continuing my daily grind. Others laughed at me for being foolish, but I just wanted to prove that I wasn't a good-for-nothing who could only rely on men. Thankfully, the debt was finally paid off. Only the medical expenses remained a distant prospect. Whenever the pain in my abdomen became unbearable, I could only grit my teeth and endure. Marcus opened his mouth to say something, but then he spotted a medical report at the bottom of the suitcase and frowned, asking, "Why did you get a checkup? Are you sick?" Just as Marcus reached for the medical report, the doorbell rang sharply, followed by a clear female voice. "Mr. Marcus, it's me." His hand froze. Abandoning his concern for me, he turned to open the door. The door opened to reveal Chloe, soaked through, carrying a box of delicate pastries, smiling brightly. "I was afraid Dad would get angry if he came to the matrimonial home and found you gone again, so I told him we're staying here tonight." When she caught sight of me, the smile in her eyes deepened, carrying a hint of provocation. "Grace is here too? You don't mind, do you? We're just putting on a show." Before I could reply, Marcus had already pulled her inside, thoughtfully handing her a towel to wipe away the rain. He seemed completely unaware of anything amiss, even telling me to brew herbal tea to warm Chloe. I stood motionless by the suitcase, my gaze coldly sweeping over them. Marcus finally remembered our earlier argument, remembered me saying I was leaving. He put down the towel, his tone softening, which was rare. "It's raining heavily outside. Don't leave yet. We can talk about it tomorrow." But I was no longer compliant. He hadn't expected me to be so confrontational and froze for a moment. Chloe feigned innocence, leaning close to me to explain, "Grace, you've misunderstood. I'm just Mr. Marcus's secretary. There's no affection between us." I looked directly into her eyes and coldly exposed her. Marcus roared, raising his hand and smashing the pastry box at my feet. With this relationship having reached such a point, what was there left for me to regret? I looked at the scattered pastries on the floor, and a sense of release made my lips curl into a smile. My heart no longer ached for him. I lowered my head and packed my luggage, memories of the past 5 years flashing through my mind. Marcus came from a powerful family, with a family business spanning multiple provinces, yet he never spoke of family matters, only saying the pressure was immense. I once thought he avoided talking about his family, because he feared I'd feel inferior. Now, it seemed he just didn't want me to enter his world. When Chloe joined the company, Marcus specifically held a welcome party for her and personally guided her through the corporation's affairs. At the time, I was happy for him, thinking he had finally learned to delegate work. But now, I just found it laughable. I had stayed up late, revising project proposals for him, scoured antique shops just to please him. Yet, he never truly acknowledged my efforts, while he was completely subservient to Chloe's every word. My hand, clutching the suitcase, trembled slightly, not from anger, but because I finally understood that I shouldn't waste any more time on him. I picked up my luggage, ready to leave, but Chloe blocked my path, handing me a document with a cunning smile. "Grace, you were in charge of this project, right? The other party illegally leaked secrets about our unreleased product and published them under their company's name. What's more troublesome is that you didn't sign the contract in time. This means you leaked company secrets, so you're liable, right?" I paused for a moment, then took the document and skimmed through it. Memories flooded back. This was a project I had poured 4 months of my heart into. Yet, Marcus had kicked me off it at the last minute, handing it over to Chloe, claiming she needed experience as a newcomer. This project was the fruit of my labor, rising from the lowest ranks. It was my chance to prove myself to everyone who underestimated me. I researched day and night, revised 5 versions of the proposal, all just to make it perfect. But Marcus didn't hesitate to hand this multi-million-dollar project to a secretary who had only been with the company for half a month. During that period, I barely slept, surviving each day on coffee alone. My project team colleagues all advised me not to push myself too hard, saying Mr. Marcus wouldn't care about the efforts of those in lower positions. But I stubbornly believed that if I did well enough, he would see my worth. As it turned out, after Chloe took over, he merely remarked, "She has potential." I once thought he wanted me to learn to let go. But now I understood, he just wanted to make space for someone who resembled her more. At first, I didn't understand why he trusted her so much, why he would rather team up with her than wait for me. Until one night, he fell asleep on the sofa, stroking my face and mumbling, "Grace, she's more like her than you are." In that moment, a string snapped inside me, and I laughed, a self-deprecating sound. I laughed at myself for fantasizing that he truly loved me, for thinking I could build a future with him. It turned out he always carried another shadow in his heart. Whoever resembled her most would receive his favor. Regaining my composure, I stared fixedly at Marcus and demanded, "You knew the project was risky, yet you gave it to her. Were you planning to make me the scapegoat all along?" Marcus was terrifyingly calm, as if it were only natural. I threw the document at him and said coldly, "Marcus, what I owed you has long been repaid. This time, I won't accept responsibility." With that, I turned and walked away without looking back. Marcus started to speak, but his phone rang. The voice on the other end was urgent. It was my best friend, Sarah. "Quick, convince Grace to go to the hospital. If her kidney cancer progresses any further, she won't make it." Marcus froze, then looked at my disappearing figure outside the door, asking with a tremble, "Kidney cancer?" By the time Marcus chased me out, I was already in the taxi I'd pre-booked. He tapped on the car window, his voice full of disbelief. "Grace, Sarah said you have kidney cancer, is that true? Get out and explain yourself. Otherwise, I'll never forgive you." The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror and kindly advised, "You young couples, why can't you talk things through instead of making such a fuss? Men are sensitive and prone to overthinking. Just be a little nicer to him." I didn't turn back to look at Marcus outside the window. I closed my eyes wearily and murmured, "He doesn't love me, and he's already had a wedding reception with someone else." The driver paused, then cursed under his breath, and decisively started the car. "A fickle man like that, you're better off without him." Marcus couldn't keep up with the car and was quickly left behind. When he was no longer visible in the rearview mirror, I gazed at the night outside. The place I had fought so hard to stay for him was, after all, nothing special now. I leaned back in the seat, and the struggles of those years resurfaced in my mind. 5 years ago, Marcus's appearance was like a lifeline, but he never hid his disdain for me. He made me join the corporation to repay a debt, which I thought was an opportunity, but it turned out to be just a game for him. I worked desperately, only to pay off the debt and prove I wasn't a parasite. But he never cared about my efforts, only whether I was obedient. Now, I had finally paid off the debt, but I had also lost my health. I touched my side, where a stinging pain often reminded me that my time was running out. I didn't want to waste another second on him. My phone in my pocket kept ringing. It was his exclusive ringtone. I intended to wait for him to hang up, but he was persistent, showing no sign of stopping. With no choice, I took out my phone and switched it off. As I waited at the train station, Sarah rushed towards me. She walked so quickly that she didn't notice her hair had been messed up by the night wind. When she reached me, she punched my shoulder, complaining, "You're not answering your phone, not going to the hospital, are you trying to die?" She was my lifelong best friend, and my only friend in this city. I rubbed my shoulder and gave a bitter smile. "There's no need. This money is better saved for my mom." Sarah's eyes reddened, losing her usual resilience. "You're lying. You spent all your money on Marcus, that's why you don't have money for treatment, isn't it? I'm telling you, even if you don't listen, I'll drag you to the hospital myself today." She grabbed my suitcase and pulled me out. Sarah chattered as she walked, saying she had long disliked Marcus's behavior. She told me that after Chloe joined, rumors circulated within the corporation that she was Marcus's new favorite. Sarah had advised me to leave earlier, but I always felt I owed Marcus too much, and couldn't let go. Now, she said she regretted not pulling me away sooner. I saw the tears in her eyes, my heart aching with bitterness. Watching her determined back, a lump formed in my throat. In my most desperate times, only my best friend stood by my side. It was true 5 years ago when my mother was in debt, and it was true now. Sarah took me to the best general hospital and arranged for a private hospital room. The doctor immediately scheduled chemotherapy for the next morning, fearing my condition would worsen further. The swelling and severe pain in my abdomen made the doctor frown. He shook his head and sighed. "It's already this serious. Why did you only come now? You're just one step away from having no options. Do you know that?" I nodded, silent, a bitter taste in my mouth. The next morning, I was wheeled into the treatment room. Sarah waved from outside the door, reassuring me, "Grace, don't be scared. It'll be over soon. I'll be waiting for you right outside." Just as the treatment room door was about to close, a familiar male voice rang out, "Where's Grace?" Lying on the treatment bed, I froze for a moment. Was the pain making me hallucinate? His heart and mind were entirely focused on Chloe now. How could he possibly be at the hospital looking for me? Besides, we had already broken up, and he had said he would never forgive me. At that thought, the speculation in my mind dissolved. Perhaps it was the medication, but I felt drowsy. Memories flooded in, overwhelming me. I remembered Marcus's first confession. It was at the corporation's anniversary gala. He invited me to dance with him on stage. After the dance, he took my hand and confessed his feelings passionately in front of everyone. "Grace, while everyone is here tonight, I want to make us official. From this day forward, you are mine, my girlfriend." I was somewhat stunned and intended to decline. After all, I was only with him because of a debt. How could I dare to hope for a future with such a dazzling person? But before I could speak, he pulled me into his arms and held me tight. The scent of sandalwood from him enveloped me. In that moment, courage overcame my insecurity, and we became a couple. But his love wasn't pure, it was mixed with the shadow of another person. And so, like a common story, he abandoned me and held a wedding reception with someone else. I still remember that after his confession, he took me to the top floor of the corporation to see the night view. He said he never thought he would fall in love with an ordinary person, but my persistence moved him. I believed him, thinking it was sincere. But later, I learned that he had once had a fiancée whom he broke up with due to an arranged family marriage. Chloe's appearance was like rekindling an old flame in his heart. I was just a replacement, never able to compare to that shadow. Why isn't she awake yet? Nothing went wrong, did it? Rustling sounds reached my ears, and I groggily opened my eyes. The treatment was over, and I had been moved back to the hospital room to rest. "Grace, you're finally awake." A pair of warm hands held mine. I looked up and saw it was Marcus. He had really come. Seeing my silence, he thought I was unwell, and quickly asked, "Are you all right? Where does it hurt?" "I'll call the doctor." He turned to leave, and I finally spoke, my voice hoarse, "No need, I'm fine." Marcus stopped and sat by the hospital bed, his gaze intensely fixed on me. His unprecedented focus made me uncomfortable. In the past, he had never looked at me like this. Even our private time had been taken up by Chloe. "Why are you here?" I asked, my tone distant. Marcus paused, a flicker of hurt crossing his face. "Of course, to see you. Why didn't you tell me you were sick, and you spent so much money buying me a ring? Grace, you're too good to me." He lowered his head, caressing the ring on his finger, as if it were a treasure. Even after the wedding reception, he still wore the ring I'd given him, not Chloe's. I stared at the ring, a mix of emotions swirling within me. To buy it, I had been extremely frugal, even selling an old necklace my mother had left me. I thought he would cherish it, but he had only worn it once at the wedding reception and then forgotten about it. Now, however, he was using it to prove his care. I didn't know if he was doing it intentionally or not, but I no longer cared. Composing myself, I looked at his face and said calmly, "I bought the ring not because I loved you, but because I didn't want to owe you anymore. With the ring bought, we're even." Marcus's hand, caressing the ring, stiffened, his fingertips trembling slightly. After a long moment, he suddenly looked up, his eyes filled with disbelief. "You're lying. You're just angry that I had a wedding reception with Chloe, intentionally saying harsh things to provoke me. Don't I know you? You would never truly abandon me." His words were strong, but his eyes darted away. He had sensed my coldness but refused to face it. A nurse came in to change the dressing and reminded him, visiting hours aren't too long. The patient needs to rest. I interjected, you should leave. Don't come back again. Marcus's hands clenched at his sides, still unwilling to give up. Grace, the doctor said your condition won't be cured in one go. You'll need more dialysis later. I should be here with you. I lost my patience, grabbed the glass from the bedside table, and smashed it at his feet, sneering, now you want to be here with me? If you had only paid attention to me earlier, even just listening to a single word, I said, you would have known I had kidney cancer long ago. But you didn't. Your heart was completely consumed by Chloe. Not even a fraction of it spared for me. So, get as far away from me as possible. Marcus was stunned by my anger. He tried to speak but was cut off by Sarah. She grabbed Marcus, dragged him out, and slammed the door shut. Someone like you doesn't deserve Grace's love at all. Outside the hospital room, Sarah lectured Marcus, defending me. He, who always cared about his reputation, didn't refute a single word, silently enduring all the accusations. As he left, he still gazed longingly at the hospital room. He expected me, as countless times before, to compromise for love, to humble myself just to maintain our relationship. But he didn't get it. Because I was no longer that pathetic person who groveled for love. During my treatment, Sarah stayed at the hospital almost every day, helping me coordinate with doctors and my treatment plan. She told me Marcus had tried to inquire about my condition through the hospital, but she blocked him. She said he didn't deserve to know my situation. I was grateful for her protection, but also felt a trace of weariness. Over the years, I had exhausted myself for Marcus, even neglecting my own health. Now, I only wanted to live for myself. During chemotherapy, I often heard news of Marcus from Sarah. I didn't know if she mentioned him unintentionally or if he deliberately conveyed messages. Sarah said that since his last visit, Marcus had suggested a cooling-off period with Chloe, stating he wanted to reconsider their relationship. He had also transferred Chloe to an out-of-province branch company to avoid contact. I found it laughable. Why was he doing all this now? What had he been doing before? If he had maintained distance from Chloe for my sake then, we wouldn't have reached this point. Sarah also mentioned that Marcus had been frequently appearing near the hospital recently, but he dared not enter my hospital room. She guessed he was afraid to face my indifference. I shook my head, not wanting to think about it further. My treatment schedule was packed. 3 chemotherapy sessions a week left me utterly exhausted. The doctor said I had to continue treatment until a suitable kidney donor was found. I didn't want Marcus's shadow to interfere with my life again. Perhaps because he was temporarily separated from Chloe, Marcus's days became freer. He visited the hospital room every few days, bringing various health supplements or hiring nutritionists to prepare custom meals for me. Each time, I threw them directly into the trash can in front of him. Grace, what do you take my good intentions for? Fine, if you don't like it, I'll get another nutritionist. He went from initial anger to eventual compromise. He seemed to realize that I was no longer endlessly forgiving, and he learned to curb his temper. Once, chemotherapy side effects made me throw up all over myself. He, who was usually a germaphobe, didn't show any disgust. He caught my vomit with his hands, rinsed them clean, then hurried to bring me warm water. After that time, Sarah told me that Marcus had stood in the hospital corridor all night, as if he had finally understood something. She urged me to give him another chance, but I just shook my head. I didn't want to be held hostage by his guilt any longer. The treatment left me extremely weak, but I gritted my teeth and persevered every day. The nurses said my willpower moved them. I told myself that as long as I got through this, I could start anew. Sarah noticed his change and shook her head in shock. A powerful family young master acting so subservient, like your personal assistant. He wouldn't actually be regretting it, would he, wanting to win you back? She nudged my arm, asking curiously, tell me, what do you think? Have you considered getting back together? I closed the book in my hands and said earnestly, no. If I were moved by such a small thing, I would be betraying all the past suffering I endured. If I can recover, I'll go back to my hometown and start a business. Marcus happened to be standing at the doorway. Hearing this, he stopped dead in his tracks and stared directly at me. Grace, what about me? His eyes were full of unease, hoping I would say I couldn't bear to leave him. But I just smiled faintly and said calmly, the further away from me, the better. We're over. Marcus's patience ran out, and he finally exploded. Grace, how dare you treat me like this? I've lived in luxury my whole life. I've never stooped so low to please anyone. But you treat me like I'm invisible, and then you just want to walk away. Fine. I'm done trying. You'll regret this. He threw the towel in his hand onto the floor and turned to leave. I felt nothing. In fact, I felt as if his departure brought peace to my world. A nurse came in to change the dressing. Seeing my calm expression, she couldn't help but say, "That man seems to care about you a lot. Why are you so heartless?" "One so heartless." I smiled, offering no explanation. Marcus's care came too late, and it was too cheap. However, there was also good news. My condition was very sensitive to chemotherapy drugs. During this time, the cancer had surprisingly not spread further. Even the attending physician was somewhat incredulous, calling it a miracle. So I began planning my life after recovery, jotting down my business ideas daily. Sarah helped me connect with friends in my hometown and gather market information. She also secretly saved up some medical expenses for me, saying she was afraid I'd try to tough it out on my own. 6 months later, the doctor announced I could suspend chemotherapy and await a kidney transplant. I knew well that the treatment had cost Sarah a lot of money, and my determination to start a business grew stronger. Knowing I wanted to start a business, Sarah immediately offered her support and even proposed providing startup capital. Seeing my reluctance, she put her arm around my shoulder and said, "This isn't a handout. When the time comes, I'll take 70% and you take 30%. I knew she wanted to put my mind at ease. She also helped me draft a business plan and analyze the market potential in my hometown. She said she believed I could build a successful enterprise. I was moved to tears, knowing I might never be able to repay her kindness in this lifetime. The day we returned to my hometown, I received a call from an unknown number. I meant to hang up, but my hand slipped and I answered. "Grace, I've packed my luggage. If you're willing to take me with you, I'll forgive everything that happened before." Marcus's voice came through. I couldn't help but laugh aloud, and said faintly, "I don't need your forgiveness, and I don't want a future with you." He hung up the phone in a rage. Imagining his enraged expression, I felt a sense of satisfaction. What he didn't cherish, he couldn't reach now. Back in my hometown, Sarah and I immediately started our business, working tirelessly. From selecting a location to hiring staff and planning projects, we were constantly busy, with no time for romance. If it weren't for Sarah frequently checking Marcus's social media updates, I would have almost forgotten about him. Ever since I rejected him, he began frequently showing off his affection with Chloe. He took her to the beach I had once wanted to visit with him, took photos together, and placed them in his office, replacing our old pictures. He promoted Chloe to department head, and they became the corporation's exemplary partners. My life, however, was completely different. I was busy negotiating partnerships, staying up late to revise proposals, and constantly on the move for projects. Finally, 6 months later, my company began to take shape, becoming one of the top 100 companies in the region. I no longer had to humble myself to seek favors. Instead, people proactively approached us for partnerships. I repaid Sarah's medical expenses and startup capital, and also bought my mother a new property. One time I was invited to attend an industry summit. Just as I picked up my teacup, a voice spoke up, "Marcus?" I turned at the sound, and was taken aback. If it weren't for the familiar ring on his finger, I would barely have recognized him as Marcus. His temples were slightly gray, his suit was a bit wrinkled, and his eyes were filled with exhaustion, as if he hadn't slept all night. Seeing my distracted look, he gave a bitter smile and said softly, "Grace, it's me. Do you think I've changed a lot?" Unsure how to respond, I nodded, my gaze sweeping over his haggard face. Marcus sighed, his voice complex, "You're doing very well. Your company has grown so much. But I haven't been doing as well as before." I was slightly startled, remembering his youthful vigor from back then. At that time, he was the corporation's dazzling heir, decisive and unparalleled in influence. Now, however, he looked crushed by life, lacking his former sharpness. I didn't ask further, turning to leave. But he called out to me, whispering, "Grace, can we talk for a bit?" I hesitated for a moment, then stopped. Sarah had mentioned Marcus's recent situation. After was promoted to department head, her confidence swelled, and she took sole charge of major projects. She believed she was unbeatable at negotiations and single-handedly secured a multi-million-dollar partnership, but she was outmaneuvered by the other party. They signed an unfair clause, causing the corporation to lose 60% of its profit for nothing. I knew Chloe wasn't content. She secretly used corporation assets for projects, depleting funds and failing to secure any. I knew the shareholders were furious and insisted on removing her from her position. Marcus, soft-hearted as he was, saved her job, but she only became worse. She stole company secrets, leaked unreleased product information, and sabotaged multi-party collaborations. Collaborators terminated contracts and demanded huge breach of contract fees. Chloe completed her resignation, then simply walked away, leaving behind a huge mess. Marcus tried to salvage the situation, but it was beyond saving. The shareholders questioned his leadership ability, and his father scolded him for ruining the family's hard work. Sarah told me he had contacted her, wanting me to help him through the difficulties, but I had already started a new life. The corporation was on the verge of bankruptcy. He sold his luxury car and property, but still couldn't cover the deficit. Now, he could only rely on small projects to make a living. Snapping back to reality, I didn't want to get tangled up with him, so I said dismissively, "The summit is about to begin, I need to go in." Marcus, however, blocked my path, his voice low and hoarse. "Grace, I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have held that wedding reception with Chloe because of family pressure back then. I regret not cherishing you, and not knowing about your illness sooner. Give me a chance, can we start over?" His eyes were filled with remorse, his fingers clenched tight, as if grasping at a last straw. I looked at him coldly, and said calmly, "Marcus, you don't regret losing me, but losing the me you could control. Now that you're down and out, you remember my goodness, but I'm no longer the Grace I once was." He froze, wanting to argue, but I cut him off. "Don't say anything more. My company has collaborations to discuss. I don't have time for your confessions." Marcus was unwilling to give up, and quickly said, "Grace, I can help you. Your company is just starting, and I still have connections. I can get you investments. You at least have to give me a chance to make amends." His tone was almost pleading, and people around us started to stare. I frowned, my voice growing colder. "My company doesn't need your charity. Keep your connections to save yourself." I turned to leave, the hardships of starting my business flashing through my mind. Sarah and I started from scratch, working late nights to revise proposals and personally visiting shops. Every collaboration we signed was earned with our sweat. Marcus once laughed at my entrepreneurial efforts as pipe dreams, but now he wants to ride my success to get back on his feet. I would never give him that chance. Marcus still wouldn't give up, chasing after me and saying, "Grace, don't you have any feelings for our past relationship? We were together for 5 years, after all. I know you hate me, but I've really changed. I'm willing to do anything for you." I stopped and looked directly at him. "Past relationship? 5 years ago, I endured you to pay off debt, but 5 years later, I don't need to endure anyone anymore. What you did can never make up for the pain you caused me. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other." He opened his mouth to speak, but was interrupted by the whispers around us. "Isn't that Mr. Marcus from Vance? How did he fall so low? I heard his company is about to go bankrupt, and he's trying to ask Grace for help. He abandoned Grace back then, and now Grace's company is already among the top 100. These words brought back the humiliation I had suffered. Marcus was ruthless when he harmed me, so why should I help him now that he's in trouble? I pushed him away, and said in a low, firm voice, "Marcus, I'm not your lifeline. From the day you chose Chloe, we were over." The summit host noticed the commotion and sternly called out, "Who let him in? Where are the guards?" I didn't give him an invitation. Who allowed him to enter? Security guards rushed over and escorted Marcus away. I ignored his shouts and walked into the venue, focusing on the summit. After that, I never saw Marcus again. I thought he would be too ashamed to appear again. Until one day, I saw him in the news headline. Plagued by corporation debt, he tried to flee, but got into a dispute with the chasing creditors on the way. His vehicle lost control, crashed through the guardrail, and plunged into the river. He drowned on the spot. The ending was absurd, yet it marked a definite end to his actions. Snapping back to reality, I looked out at the clear sky and let out a long breath. It felt truly good to not depend on anyone. Feel free to share your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.